thought today we'd talk a little fruit tree spacing. So what do you say? Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Dan and Alice here.
I'm bringing my coffee in the backyard forest.
And I thought I would pick up the camera and do a quick video on proper fruit tree spacing. Had a lot of questions over the years come in on the topic. A lot of folks, especially when they see my fruit tree hedgerow here, they wonder what the heck's going on. You know, all these trees planted so close by. Is that right? Does that work? So I want to cover that. I want to talk about just fruit tree spacing in general. Hopefully the information and opinions I share today are helpful, whether you're trying to grow a food forest in your yard, or maybe you're looking to start a backyard orchard culture, or even just have a garden and want to plant a couple more fruit trees and you want to know what's the best distance between those trees. So in the case of the fruit tree hedgerow, the whole idea of this type of planting is to create a hedge-like structure where the trees end up touching each other. The branches extend into each other and create a nice dense shrub-like appearance that can be helpful whether you're trying to actually like stop some wind or dust from coming into your property, or maybe put a little bit of a buffer on some of the noise coming in from nearby traffic, or if you want to create privacy. There's a lot of different reasons you might consider doing a hedgerow like this. Not to mention, of course, you're going to be able to pack in a whole lot more trees planting them in close by like this. Now, with that being said, there's a couple things that you should be aware of if you're planting this way. One being, you got to make sure that you're only doing it with dwarf or semi-dwarf trees. If you try to plant like this with standard, you're going to have a heck of a time managing that system. And although you can still get it to work, I'm going to touch on why that is in a little bit. You definitely want to keep that in mind and make sure you're picking the right varieties. You can see here I've got an apium and an apricot spaced about 7 feet. And I find that to actually be pretty much my favorite spacing for a fruit tree hedgerow. I've got other trees that are planted more like 5 feet on center, and this works out just fine as well, especially if you can find varieties of trees that are specifically bred and grafted to keep them extremely small. I saw this year at my local nursery they had a couple different peach trees that only get 5 feet tall, so they'd be perfect for a system like this, although you're not going to gain the benefits of creating privacy or anything like that, but you'll still have the hedge. So you could say I made a little bit of a misstep. There are no mistakes in the garden. I've said that before, just lessons to be learned. When I planted out my hedgerow and I put this Florida King peach tree in the mix here, which I thought was a semi-dwarf, but it's actually a standard. And so it really wants to grow nice and tall. It's a wonderful tree, produces very nice for us. And I've been able to actually manage it pretty well. It doesn't want to be pruned down all that hard, so you just have to accept it for being the height it is. And it's doing wonderful this year. See all the flowering. A lot of bud swell, open flowers. But with that being said, I've still got a white nectarine here next door. It's doing just fine. It's only 5 feet away from the Florida King. So it can be done. And really, I don't manage these trees all that much. Especially this year, I didn't do much pruning at all now that I've got a nice structure going. But one thing I wanted to bring to your attention was, if you go out to a natural forest, you're going to notice something right away. Those trees are not all evenly spaced, so the trees all have ample room to grow. Some of these trees are going to be 1 foot, 2 feet apart, still growing 30 feet tall, and they're surviving and maintaining. Also, I've got a neighbor, for example, that has just one apple tree, and the apple tree has got a spread of about 15-20 feet. And one thing I noticed with that tree, because it's a lot taller than some of my trees as well, is that they don't get to a lot of the fruit. And so that's something to consider when you are planting trees in your yard. Having big, large, huge trees can create issues of their own, whether it be just too much fruit coming on, too much work to have to deal with it, harder to harvest. Also having birds and stuff nest in your trees because it's taller and higher off the ground, they feel safer up there. So when you do a closer planting, it is going to require that you get out and you do more management, more pruning to keep things in check. But on the bright side, you're able to grow a lot more varieties in a smaller amount of space. So you're going to have to weigh your own options when it comes to your style of planting. Now, I don't just have hedgerow growing back here. I've got other fruit trees scattered throughout the food forest here and there. Let's look at that. So here I've got a Washington navel orange tree, and this tree can get quite large and bushy. I've seen some examples around here of very large citrus trees. I will be doing some management pruning on this tree in the future, but it's pretty much got its own space here. It is close next to this garden arbor over here. It has the wisteria growing all over it. And over here we've got an autumn olive that is kind of being overtaken by the orange at the moment, but it'll be better once I do a bit of pruning. So for this style of citrus tree, I'd recommend going about 10-15 feet apart. Sorry about all the noise today. There's a lot of air traffic. We're just going to keep going forward with the video. But here you could see we've got a pomegranate tree all on its own here. And again, it's giving it nice ample room to spread out, which is important because, like the citrus, these are both almost like a shrub and a tree combined. So you want to keep that in mind when you're planting your trees. What sort of a structure is the tree going to develop? Because if you do have a bushy, more shrub-like tree, you're going to want to give it a lot more distance on its sides to grow out. And here we've got the pineapple guava or feijoa tree, and it's got about 8 feet of spacing between the trees on the side here. And although this has more of a bushy structure, it can be pruned more like a tree, and I plan on doing some pruning to keep this a little bit more like a tree. So this is going to work out just fine over here. Now take a look over here. We've got 2 fig trees, and these trees are not but 1.5 feet apart from each other. There's a brown turkey and a blackjack fig. So this is called a 2-in-1 planting. I've had mixed success with my 2-in-1 planting so far for various reasons, but the fig trees have done well growing together like this. But as you can probably tell, the theme for this design is to squeeze in as much variety as we can in this space, and we've done a great job doing that. We've got over 35 fruit trees now. I think we're nearing about 40 different varieties of fruit trees growing back here. We've got lots of different berry shrubs and new additions still coming in. So I'm going to summarize by saying this. If you want a traditional planting of fruit trees, one in which you can walk between the trees is going to get larger, you're going to get lots and lots of fruit off of one tree, then I would space them 15 to 20 feet apart, even if they're semi-dwarf. Now, if you're looking to get more variety in your landscape but still not have to do as much management, I'd aim for more like a 10-foot on center spread between your trees. And if you're looking for high density and you're willing to do a bit more management and you're willing to do what it takes to keep your design in check, then you might want to go as close as between 5 and 7 feet. So it really is up to you and your preference. And also, what kind of landscape are you working on? Are you working in a traditional backyard? Are you working on acreage? So, I mean, this is all going to come into play. But I would highly encourage you to not be afraid to experiment and try and see how much you can grow, how closely you can grow. I think it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of rewards in gardening. Remember what I said earlier, there are no mistakes, there are no fails. I don't like that word. When it comes to gardening, everything is experience, and you learn a lot from the garden in many different areas of life. So go with it.
See, it's easy to pull because the soil is wet. I don't want this to grow big.
One-handed weed pulling and one hand of coffee drinking. Don't I have a great wife? She just goes over there by herself and starts pulling out some weeds, even though she's drinking her coffee in the other hand. Thanks, sweetie. That's going to do it for now. I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, this is Dan.
Planabundance.com.
Who are you? You're Alice, right? This is Dan and Alice from plantabundance.com. Take care. We'll be talking to you again soon.
Bye-bye.